Hey guys, so here's my humble attempt at the sequence reverser. As you can see, I'm again going for speed and ignore everything else. The current best is 264 cycles, but obviously I'm looking for suggestions how to make it even faster. But let's take a look. So, um, what do we have here? Okay, first of all, let's just make sure that this thing works, which it does. Again, not very short. Yeah, it only uses 4 nodes, but that's not a big deal. But I tried to make it pretty fast, but I think it might be even faster. Not much faster, but a little bit faster. Anyway, let's take a look how it works. Well, I mean, obviously, the speed up comes from using both stacked memory nodes, not just one. I mean, it's easy to use just one and do the reverse, but I quickly realized that since this is a parallel architecture, there is no reason why we can't use both. So while we fill one, we drain the other, and then reverse the roles. And that's it. That's the basic idea behind this solution. So so what happens is, if I press the run button, you can actually observe the two stack memories, and you can see that one is filling up and the other is being drained. So we obviously the the one in the upper right corner, I called it stack 1, and the lower left corner I called it stack 2. Doesn't matter. But you will see if I run how one is being filled up while the other is being drained. And just give you an idea so you can see what's happening. Um, Now, how this whole thing works is actually quite simple, but it becomes tricky because now we are talking about parallel execution, and actually I ran into some race conditions with signaling, which is quite funny. So I could get it run to completion in some cases without an error, and in some other cases there was an error, which is obviously the sign of a release condition. But okay, so let's talk through this. Um, so I mean, using the stack is simple. Everything that comes in, you just put it in the stack, and when you the sequence is over, you just pop things off the stack. However, the way this stack node works, you have to know when you're at the bottom, when you emptied the stack. So for that, I use this guard as 0. So every time, no matter what, the first thing I do, I put a 0 in the stack. So this is the first line. I do this with both stacks. This makes it draining the stack simpler because I only have to do is just check for the value 0, which for some reason does not appear. Well, okay, not for some reason, because 0 is the end of the sequence. Anyway, so every time I just put 0 on the stack, and that's how I know that when I'm finished draining it. So okay, so filling up stack 1 is simple. You get the input value, you put it in the stack. If it's not 0, repeat. Okay, so we're just filling it up. Um, now, now comes the first non-trivial part. So everywhere you see -1 is a value that is not used because it's just thrown away. It's only used for signaling, for synchronization. It doesn't matter. It could be any value. I just picked -1 because it's not a valid input value, so it stands out. But it doesn't matter. I only use this for signaling. So basically what I do here, I fill up stack 1, and here I signal. Actually, this signaling goes to this node below stack 1, and I propagate it there, so it tells this little node that it can start draining it. One little subtlety is that to make this loop tighter, I also add the 0 at the sequence to the top of the stack, which means that when I drain the stack, the first value I pop off is always 0, and I don't want to output that, so I'm just going to throw it away. So let's see how stack 1 is drained. Okay, so I fill it up in this little tight loop. I see a 0, and then of course, I see a 0, which I also put on the stack, but then I see a 0, so this is not true. So I'm going to get here, which means I'm just going to send a -1 down. So what happens here? This guy, again, this is the guy who's going to fill up stack 2. But for now, let's see what happens when we finish with stack 1. So this is just an initialization of stack 2. You can ignore that. But the next one is passing on the signal, this -1 from here, from this line. It's passing it on to this little node that drains it. And let's see what happens. So this guy, when it starts its little life, it waits for a signal. As you can see, signals are just discarded because I don't care about the value, or I care about that they happen. So this guy is just waiting when it starts up. It's waiting for a signal so it can start draining the stack, which it's going to receive from here. So this guy sends a signal, this guy passes it on, you see move up to right, and this, when it receives this signal, let's see what happens. So it receives this signal, the first thing it does, it throws away the 0, the end of the sequence, which was put on the stack. It's a little optimization, and after that it just literally drains the stack. So gets a value from the stack, passes it on, and if it's not 0, it keeps doing it. Okay, that's it. Well, let's ignore these two lines at the bottom for now. So okay, we're draining the stack 1. The values are sent down. Here again, we are draining stack 1. What's happening? Okay, we are receiving a value. Put it in the accumulator. Output it. If it's not 0, keep draining it. Okay, so far so good. So this basically means that these two guys here below stack 1 are draining stack 1 independently of the input, which is great. So this is the advantage of parallel processing, that these guys just do their work on their own, which means that we can exploit the parallelism of the architecture. We don't have to stop processing the input, because in the meanwhile, while we're draining stack 1, we can fill stack 2. So that's exactly what's going to happen. So this guy once finished filling stack 1 and signals with this line that now stack 1 can be drained, it starts filling stack 2. So how does it work? I mean, it just simply, again, start consuming the input, but now instead of sending it to this stack 1, it sends the values down. Again, every non-zero value is sent down. Let's ignore what happens when we finished with filling stack 2. So here, this guy, once it's signaled the draining of stack 1, it's ready to fill stack 2, and that's exactly what it does. It gets the values from above and puts them on stack 2, and it does it in a tight loop. So it's pretty fast. Now comes the interesting part, because there are several signals or synchronizations that have to happen here. So what are we talking about? But first of all, when stack 2 is filled, that is, we receive a 0, end of sequence, that's when we can say, okay, guys, stack 2 is full. I mean, not full, but it can be drained. So we have to signal that um, we can start draining stack 2. This is what is done by this line. So this signal, this move -1 to right, is, as we'll see, is going to be passed down to here, this drain stack 2, so that we can start draining stack 2. Because obviously, we cannot start draining stack 2 until stack 1 is done. So, okay, so how does it work? When we are draining stack 1, we saw that it works pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward manner. But when it's done, so it's done when we see a 0, this guy says, okay, we finished draining stack 1. What we do next? Well, we just wait. We wait for the signal, and this is the wait. We wait for the signal from this guy, the guy who's filling stack 2. We wait for a signal to start draining stack 2. So basically we get stuck here waiting for this line to happen. This instruction to be executed, which is going to happen once we finished filling stack 2. So, okay, we finished filling stack 2, we signal this guy, and this guy will say, okay, fine. Now we can start draining stack 2, and then passes on the signal down here, okay? Because this guy also waits for once it drains stack 1. Again, it gets stuck here, waits for the signal to arrive so it can start draining stack 2. Because again, there's a synchronization problem here that we need to solve, because this little guy in this little loop cannot start draining stack 2 until this guy is finished filling it up. Okay, so once it's finished filling it up, it signals that it's done. Okay, this line passes the signal on. Sorry, this line is the one that passes the signal on. Down here, we receive the signal here, we unblock. Here we just discard the top 0, and then we drain stack 2. But there is signals needs to travel the other direction as well, and this is where it gets a little tricky. Because, okay, fine, this guy says we can drain stack 2, but what can we say about when can we start filling stack 1? Well, we can start filling up stack 1 again when we know that it's been drained. But how do we know it's been drained? Well, stack 1 is drained when this guy is finished. But how do we know it's finished? Well, that it's finished if we reach this line, then we know that stack 1 is done. So this is a little trick here. So how do we know that this line is reached? Well, we know this line is reached because, remember, things block. If there is no one on the receiving end in this communication model, you cannot move on. So if you're sending -1 to the right node, this instruction will block until somebody receives it. But the fact that somebody receives it, the fact that this guy receives it on this line, means that it has finished draining stack 1, right? So we can start filling it up again. So as soon as this instruction is done, it's finished, it's unblocked, we can immediately signal the top node, this is our signal to the top node, that it can start filling up stack 1 again. And this is exactly what we do here, sending -1 up. And this is the line that receives it, because obviously this guy, the top node, cannot start filling up stack 1 until it's drained. Okay? So it waits here for the signal. It receives the signal, and then back to line 1, and we start filling up stack 1. We are not done yet, because this guy here needs to wait for stack 2 to be drained, and this is where it blocks, waiting for a signal from this bottom node to finish draining stack 2. So, remember stack 2 is being drained because we signaled that it can be drained here. And when we are done draining it, that is, we see 0, which is we know that it's the last value that we pop off. We signal it. Here's the signal. We say, okay, fine. We drained it. We move this -1 up. And this is just passing it on from down to left. That is back here. And this is where we receive it. So this guy blocks until stack 2 is fully drained. And we need to block here because this guy would otherwise start adding values to your stack that is being drained. Okay, so we have to block here. We have to block here until stack 2 is drained. But once it's drained, it's awesome. We can initialize it again, adding a 0, and then wait. Block here, waiting for the top node to signal that stack 1 is ready to be drained. So that's it. That's the trick. There's a lot of signaling going on. The main idea is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. First, we fill up stack 1, and then signal that it can be drained, and we immediately start filling up stack 2. And once stack up is filled up, we signal that it can be drained. And then that's it. We alternate between stack 1 and stack 2. And that's how we can speed things up. Because otherwise, if we are only using one stack, we are wasting cycles, because while stack 1 is being drained, we are not consuming input. But this way we do. So that's it. You can see it runs. You can see it runs as expected, and it's reasonably fast. But any suggestions are welcome, because I think the signaling could be simplified. I'm not sure. I have the feeling that it can be made better by making some instructions or signal do more than one thing, but have not figured it out yet. So anyway, I hope you liked it.